Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. I am J.R. Stays, coming to you from our studio at Techtown. And joining me to help save my voice, because, look, there's so much to talk about, I had to hop on the microphone, is none other than the Prince of Brightmoor. I'm being saved by royalty. Norris Howard, how are you?
Yes, the cavalry comes through, and as I ride through the battlefield on my steed of black, I am here at Daily Detroit in order to provide to you the news.
Is your horse named Hot Takes?
No, it is named Chaos.
All right, we've got a lot we're going to get into. We're going to talk about where we've been, where we've seen you. We're going to get into some development news, including details on the new hotel going into Michigan Central, renovation of a shed in Eastern Market, speculation on yet another new hotel, as well as some updates and thoughts of former University of Michigan President Self-Ono losing out on his University of Florida gig. And of course, there was a Poll-A-Palooza this week about the city, from the mayor's race to the schools, and so we will talk about it. But first, where we have been. The reason my voice is hoarse is I was up at the Mackinac Policy Conference and Ferndale Pride because I am a glutton for vocal punishment. It was wonderful to see so many people make so many connections and really get a pace on things, Norris. I hope one year that I can figure out a way to bring you along.
Yeah, man. You know, I think all the stuff that I was seeing coming out of Mackinac was, I think, emblematic of kind of how the year felt in general. It just feels like this is a real transitional period for a lot of folks, for a lot of administrations, and really for just municipal work, investment. It just felt like everybody was in this holding pattern. But a lot of good stuff always comes out of Mackinac.
Yeah, I think people are realizing now that they're going to have to change jerseys. Meaning, I don't think anymore the business community, you can reliably say they're Republican. I think that is over.
Really?
That is over.
You think so?
I know it.
That is a very bold claim.
It is. In fact, even some of the sessions were talking about a more independent mind with working with people in those parties that are actually up for working with business, because honestly, a lot of the Republican Party policies are anti-business at this point.
I mean
given it's a populist anti-business agenda. I'm not saying anything that's
at the federal level for sure.
Even at the state level, if you look at the mess that's happening with our state budget, we're at an impasse. There's a lot of issues happening on right now, and I'm going to write an editorial about it. But we need to, we're revisiting even things like civility. I know that's something that the Detroit Regional Chamber really pushes, but it's hard to have civility without respect. And we're in a political era of no respect.
Yeah. And, definitely it's going to be interesting to see where some of those conversations that were happening at Mackinac end up amounting to. The money movers and the lobbyists go up to Mackinac as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up coming out of there. I think a lot of the big conversations that happen around the city of Detroit, a lot of them have their sort of genesis at Mackinac, just because of the sheer nexus of power, ideas, and the resources to be able to get them done.
Now, I also want to shout out Ferndale Pride. It was so great to see people there. Go check out our Instagram. I did a reel about our Pride Arch.
Norris, it was very cute, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks to Cheyenne, Lucci, everybody who helped out with that arch. Now, you went and had some fun, though. You did movement and the Grand Prix. I saw some wild smash ups.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. First, let's start with the Grand Prix. It was the most recent. The weather held out for the Grand Prix. There was some worries that it may be some rain, but the weather held out. A little chilly, but beautiful race days for the most part. Definitely on Saturday and Sunday, there were some big crashes. Sunday in particular, I think, in that turn 3 right there at Jefferson and Griswold, there was a pretty big smash up right there, right in front of the grandstand. So if you were in that area, you got a literal just front row seat to one of the biggest wrecks of the evening. But, hey, 3 Americans sat on the podium, 1, 2, 3 at the Grand Prix. And it was pretty cool to see. And I'll say this, I know a lot of people talking about, oh man, on Belle Isle and this, that, it don't feel the same. I don't care, man. It was really fun once again to be right in the middle of downtown and to just walk out and there's the Grand Prix.
That's how I grew up with racing, and that's how I became originally an F1 fan.
Yep.
Because of all the races downtown. I saw that clip from a driver who did not like the Detroit course.
Yeah.
And but here's the thing.
The course is not great. As a race fan, I'm going to be honest. Listen, it's only so much we can do, and maybe we could get creative somewhere.
I think we can make some adjustments, especially with all the redesigns that are going to be happening.
Yeah, we should definitely make some adjustments because it's not a good course. I'm going to be honest with you.
Really? Just straight out?
I think the back straight is way too long.
You're talking about Jefferson Avenue?
Yes, that straight is way too long. I think the hairpin at turn 3 is a little too slow. And, I don't want to get too deep into F1 and all that. There's not really a good chicane. Every F1 track should have a good chicane.
But yeah.
Well, yeah, Indy.
The old F1 track had a chicane. This one does not.
Indy is just F1 with less rules and the cars are the same. That's it. So every good Indy or open wheel racing track, let's put it that way, every open wheel racing track should have 2 to 3 great chicanes. And I think we only got one, and it's not that good.
And then movement.
Yeah, movement. Oh, let me tell you. Movement, I had such a colorful time at Movement. I always do. What a great, great festival. It is, bar none, my favorite festival in Detroit, period. Beats out everything. Beats Arts, Beats, Neats, and all that other foolishness. No, Movement is the Detroit festival. The only one that was ever better, and I'm taking it back, for a lot of you listeners, was the old Detroit Taste Fest when it was on the Boulevard.
Yes.
Back in the day.
On the Boulevard, it was amazing. You had the Fisher Building right there. You had New Center Park. You had the old GM was still in there back in the day.
That was the only festival that was better just because of the sheer amount of stuff
it
that
felt
you
very
could
like
do.
a city. It felt
And
like
it
a
was
city.
very much so like a city. I saw Lupe Fiasco perform at the Taste Fest one time. It was great.
Let's get into a little bit more serious news that got a lot of attention on our Threads account. Self-Ono owned himself.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
He really did.
He blew through Florida like the Self-Ono winds.
Self-Ono wins.
Like, listen, if you haven't heard of this story, Self-Ono, former president of the University of Michigan, he was definitely more conservative, I think, than a large portion of that board. He wanted to sort of capitulate to the Trump pressures that he was putting on universities at the time, which now it seems like the brunt of that has been focused on Harvard University. But he left, ended up going down to the University of Florida, saying that he was going to be president there. And apparently he passed the first round, but that second round, they said, absolutely not, dog. You can't be down here. You are too woke for Florida.
The Board of Governors put the kibosh on that. And you know what? Very rarely do I say both we were right and Schadenfreude.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? If you're going to go down, and here's the reality, in this political environment, if you don't have your principles, you have nothing. Because look at Tim Cook at Apple.
Yep.
Look at a bunch of other guys. All stood up there, lined up. All right. Oh, this is what we want this guy to do. Look at Elon Musk hating the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, only because he wants a way worse bill.
For sure. But my point is that there is no, like, in this political environment, you should be true to who you are. So if you are that, then be that.
Yeah.
But trying to like flip-flop around, trying to fake who you are to one side or another, you're just going to get eaten alive. And if you're going to go down either way, I would rather go down with my principles.
Yeah, well, not just as a principled person, but I just think it's duplicitous in general. Like, in what world would a board of regents or whatever look at a guy who effectively abandoned his post and decided, I want to come down here just because I don't really, these guys are not as conservative as me. Let me come down here with y'all. No, because then when the goalposts inevitably get moved somewhere else.
Because you can never be enough.
Because you can never be enough.
It is a actual tactic of manipulation to do this to people, where you can never be enough. The goalposts always move. You can never genuflect enough. And I'm not just saying the right does it.
No, the purity test exists everywhere.
And once you pull into that purity test world, left or right, you can never win.
Yeah.
You will never be good enough. So that's why I don't care.
Yeah, and also you had literally one of the cushiest jobs in academia. You were the president of the University of Michigan. This is the closest thing to an Ivy League that you can possibly have while also being a public university.
Would love to hear your feedback. dailydetroit@gmail.com.
I'm riding on road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now. So I need that go, y'all.
We have news about the hotel coming to Michigan Central. It's going to be a NoMad hotel. This is going to be quite the development with 180 guest rooms. The entrance is going to be on the west side of Michigan Central. There's been a lot of talk about what is going to happen with this. But when you drive up on Michigan Central with all those lights, I see hotel, man. I know
All
that
day long.
It looks.
It already looks like one. It already looks like one. Listen, I think this is going to be a great development, especially considering that the groundbreaking for the new DCFC stadium should be starting anytime soon. That area is going to have so much going on. Just so much stuff is going to be able to get done, and that hotel is going to be a great anchor that's going to be in that building. But another thing that I think is fantastic is the simple fact that they did make this a very shishi hotel. This is going to be one of Hilton's most shishi hotels in the Midwest.
We're going to have a lot of shishi in 2027 when this opens, because there's this, and then there's also, I believe, the Edison in the Hudson's Detroit downtown.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, and then also we got the new glass one over there next to the Water Tower.
Like near the Water Square residences.
Yeah, Water Square. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, that's going to be right there next to Huntington.
You're just inventing water towers now.
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. But a lot of shishi coming to Detroit. And I've said it on this show many times, is that actually is an element that I think is missing from the city of Detroit, is that you go to other large cities and there are a lot of wealthy people that live within the borders.
Well, yeah, and also this is now a regional tourist destination. Detroit, one of the things that I've been having some conversations with over the last few weeks is that realization that, like, not Detroit is changing. It has changed.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to being a place people want to go. You mentioned about shishi hotels. I have a bold prediction.
Okay, hit me with it.
I can't give all the details because I don't have them squared away yet, but I believe we're going to hear news. Do you remember there was a press release a while back about a Bobby Hotel from Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee?
Yeah.
All right, this is my bold speculation.
Okay.
I think it's coming soon, and I think it's going to be on Washington Boulevard.
Where?
I'm not sure. But
Washington Boulevard is like a speck big.
Right, but if you remember, you could be right across the street from, like, there's the Westons across the street from the Book Cadillac.
The parking lot?
Yeah.
So you got the parking lot.
There's also that 2-story next to the book tower. It's only 2 stories that you could do something with.
And then there's
the corner of Washington and Michigan you could do something with.
Yes,
so
but
there's
that's a Sonder now. That's a Sonder hotel. So you can
green one, but not the old, not the one, because there was that old building that used to have a Quiznos in it.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I am a fan of removing every surface parking lot in downtown Detroit and putting
So you went on the surface.
a hotel or an apartment building right there. So if they could get rid of that parking lot, thank Jesus. And put
Again,
it
it's
there.
in the speculation territory.
Yeah.
People need to do a little bit more work, but that's going to be my thought.
All right.
There's also actual plans, though, for a new expansion for Shed 4 in Eastern Market. Axios Detroit has a story. Friend of the show, Annalise Frank,
That's right.
came by for that. It was absolutely great. It's going to be a complete rebuild, as the outdoor-only shed that's out there now will get torn down, and then this is going to be something that's going to be allowing year-round access, more vendors. They still need to raise some money for this.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of project, I think, that is going to be great for Eastern Market, because I think, and it may be an unpopular opinion. I know it is in some circles, but I think Eastern Market could be so much more. I love it, but there's so much more.
No, it still has potential, even after all the things that they've done over there already. And year-round programming is one of those things, right? So this, in the renderings, has sort of an indoor-outdoor layout where it looks like they're going to be able to open up sort of the upper levels, and there's some balconies involved. And it's just, again, aesthetically, it's beautiful, but it's one of those situations where I think people are taking to areas of Detroit with more ideas. Now, as you said, more money has got to be raised.
Because remember those plans to build that residential that didn't happen on that old warehouse spot?
Yep.
Right there on Russell? That hasn't happened
No,
yet.
it has not.
There's a number of things like that where That's part of the thing that can really happen with Detroit. I think that's a piece of the conversation I'm really realizing is that the kind of money you can do so much here.
When not as much money as anywhere near as.
And agreed. And I think that's part of why you're seeing so much out of town money. And I don't mean suburbanite money.
No. Literally out of Michigan money.
That's one thing I realized. That's a big takeaway tying it back to the Mackinac Policy Conference. Out of state money is flooding in.
Yeah. And it's going to.
And you're seeing it even in the housing market too.
Yeah. And, obviously we could talk about the positives and negatives of that, because that will also, potentially raise housing prices and cause a larger schism. However, it would also mean that people with more money potentially come to the city, and we need that.
I just saw a Instagram post about an off-market listing in West Village, $625,000 in West Village, not Indian Village.
Yeah.
There was a time where that was an Indian Village price.
Absolutely. But again, as Indian Village has been stable, and as the new developments over there on Kercheval, and as that area over there on Van Dyke has completely stabilized, and those people have got in there, renovated those homes, and kept that neighborhood up, yes, those prices are going to increase all around the villages.
Let's end the show with a Poll-A-Palooza. So there's 3 things that I have takeaways, and this was a poll by the Glenn Gariff Group with the Detroit News and WDIV. And I'll put links to everything in the show notes, but I think there are 3 big takeaways. I'll put them all out there, and then we can kind of discuss them. 1, more than 4 in 5 Detroiters approve of Mike Duggan's job as mayor.
I don't know how many times we can say it, y'all. I don't know how many times we can say it. It is going to be very difficult to beat this man in Metro Detroit, period.
Sheffield has, Mary Sheffield, city council president, has a huge lead for the mayor's race. And this is now truly a competition for second place with Kinloch there, but losing a little bit of ground. So until Jenkins making up a little ground, there's some shift there. There's still 22% undecided. This is going to be Sheffield's primary to lose.
Absolutely. And, again, we've said this on this show that her brand, her name recognition, and her ability to get out in front of the citizens of Detroit will be her superpower for this election, both in the primary and in the general. And based on the numbers, her lead is quite cavernous. It is a lead that's really, really large.
It's larger than the undecided vote, the entire undecided vote
So
over
even
Kinloch alone.
Even if Kinloch got every undecided voter, she'd still win. That's how big
And he
her,
won't, right?
Yeah.
Because it'll split across.
Yeah, but that's how big her lead is right now.
And I kind of feel like James Craig has a ceiling. He's outperforming Trump as the Republican in the race. I will remind people that coming on June 21st, tickets are already sold out. But I will be co-moderating a debate with the folks over at Outlier Media, Orlando Bailey, Donna Givens-Davidson, talking about all of these things. And I've got a lot of questions. I want to hear what your questions are if you're interested. dailydetroit@gmail.com. But let's add one more thing to this Poll-A-Palooza. A huge difference in white and black views on Detroit's public schools. So about 1/3 of African-American voters said Detroit schools were worse, compared with 14% of white voters. Now, 40% of white respondents said the schools were better, compared with 20% of black voters. I think I have a hint of what's going on here, but it's wild.
Hit me with it, because I'm interested.
Huge racial gap.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your take on this. As we sit here, 2 products of Detroit Public Schools.
Well, no, I'm not a DPS.
Oh no, yeah, you're not
Yeah.
DPS. Yeah,
No.
you're an interloper.
I'm an interloper. I
up
only
there
spent half
in
my
the
time in the
points.
city at Grandma's house.
Yeah.
And I will say it really informed my views on education because I saw just how effed up things were.
Yeah, I am absolutely DPS.
Okay. I think that the difference in white perception and black perception is because of a different approach to the schools. It is my experience, and please yell at me if you want in our email, dailydetroit@gmail.com. A lot of African-American families are choosing to send their kids to districts outside of the city or to private school. What I am seeing a number of white folks that I know, and they won't come on the air because this is a tough one to talk about.
Yeah.
They're selecting DPS schools that they're going to get involved in, and they get together with their friends, and they say, we're just going to do the PTO. We're going to do the donations. We're going to do whatever it takes to ensure that the schools that our group of friends go to succeeds and gets them the additional money. Because unfortunately, Unfortunately, in Michigan, the success of your school tracks with your household income of the participants. And that is a cold and hard, difficult reality, as much as it hurts my heart to say. It's all about the money, man.
And on top of that, we must be perceptive of what schools we're talking about, because these parents are not even just sending their kids to, your local neighborhood schools. We're still talking about some of the magnets here that are getting a lot of this attention.
Especially when you're talking later in the journey. With
Yes.
with the DPS, within DPS, there's a lot of school of choice flexibility.
Absolutely. You're talking about your Bates Academies, your Casses, your Renaissances, schools like that. I think that's a really interesting take. I don't have any white friends who have children, so I can't speak on it with any sort of brevity. But I think what is interesting about somebody who is a graduate of Detroit Public Schools, whose family has all been in Detroit Public Schools, is I believe that the negative perception does stem from those who have decided to remove their children from the DPS system. We all know about black middle class flight, black flight to Southfield and the Points and, Oak Park and so on and so forth. My father did the same, but my younger brother and sister still graduated from Detroit Public Schools. They still graduated from Renaissance. Again, a magnet. But I think a lot of parents are who would normally be a part of these strong PTOs, who would normally be organizing the fundraising efforts, who would normally be trying to get the money together to get the football field renovated and get new uniforms for the kids and all that. They are now all sending their kids to Groves. They're sending their kids to Troy Athens. They're sending their kids to, those schools, stuff like that.
All right, I'm just going to say this. That sounds like a traumatic loss.
It is.
Because
it is a shock that the school district will never recover from, because unless you are ready to replenish those parents with new parents, it's not going to happen. And the new parents that are coming in have a different value set. It just is what it is.
It was very telling to me in that conversation with Anika Goss of Detroit Future City. I know some people, I got some interesting pushback on that episode, but I think she was very realistic when she said that, we just need to attract more middle class. People who've chosen to leave aren't coming back.
No.
And that is a hard thing when I think about the stories that I know, and I only know some of the stories, right? Because I have a different background than you. And that lack of shared history and how it's gone to the suburbs and how you see so much of that stuff now in Southfield, in Farmington,
absolutely.
in Birmingham, or in Atlanta or places like that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we as a city are improving certain metrics, but I don't think we as a city are really dealing with this change very well. Of this is a huge, the numbers may be better, but to a lot of people, it doesn't feel, no matter what the numbers say, no matter what you say about, there wasn't anything on that lot before, it wasn't gentrification. It feels like a piece of Detroit's history has just been moved up and out, whether there was white flight and now black middle class flight, and now this reinvestment with people that, honestly, as I said earlier in the show, it's not, you got your occasional guy from Livonia who's got decide to move in once he's retired. But for the most part,
It's out of state.
It's out of state.
And they're going to be bringing whatever culture that they have with them. And, there's nothing wrong with that. We're a big city. That's how cities should function. But fundamentally, a city has its own culture. And a lot of that culture is birthed out of your school system. Kids create new culture. That is what they do. And when we lose our ability to have these sort of shared cultural moments, particularly as Detroiters, it is harmful. It's harmful to the tapestry of the city. Listen, I have plenty of friends who lived a few blocks from me, half a mile from me, friends who grew up in just the neighborhood over, who went to Southfield Lathrop because they had an auntie or an uncle who had an address out there, and that's whose address they use. And now they can go to the quote-unquote better school. It's as simple as that. And when you have family that can provide for you an opportunity to go to a school district that functions better, that is the choice almost every parent will make. And I think we've put our parents here in the city of Detroit in a big conundrum, because if you're not going to some of these magnets and going to these places where with these strong PTOs and people are fundraising to try to get the school improved, the quality of the education that the kids are getting is not what it should be for a city and state of our size.
I'm really interested to hear what you all thought. You know, one foot in, one foot out for me as a child. I had a really complicated childhood, you know, split between multiple houses and parents all over the place and picking them up from police chase stations when I was like, I had a real messed up childhood. So like I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out of like sanity.
Yeah, but Jared, I saw it. Like when I was in first, second grade, my school was almost like 40% African American, 30% white, and like that last little bit made up of everybody else. And by the time I was in 8th grade, it was 90% black. 90. From 40 to 90 over the course of like 5 years. I saw it happen in real time. So, you know, with that understanding, it is a detriment to, I think, the school district. And yeah, those parents are never coming back, man. And so we got to replace them with new parents. And those new parents are not going to be the same ones that have the same level of affinity for your cast text, for your, CMAs, or your, even the schools that aren't there anymore, your Murray Wrights, your Retfords, your Coolies, your Codys, all that. It's gone, bro.
I can't help but feel a similarity to the general election when it was like, oh, look, the numbers are great, but people don't feel, there's a group of people who don't feel right, you know?
Yeah.
So something to think about. DailyDetroit@gmail.com. Would love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're a parent in the city.
You know what? I would love to, especially if you're a parent in the city and your kid's going to public school. Like if your kid is going to a public school in the city, like please I want to hear from you, because I don't have kids and I want to know what your experience with the school district is like.
DailyDetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. All right, we are done for today. Thank you so much for dealing with my hoarse voice. I will return stronger at some point, Norris Howard.
Tea, milk, lemon. That's the remedy.
Hot toddies?
Yes. And alcohol.
All right, well, with that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Norris Howard.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our members on Patreon for supporting us. Remember that you are somebody. We'll see you around Detroit.